a minute to kick in. Okay. And again, I appreciate the three of you being here very much, and I thank you for your, especially all of you are 10 o'clock, is that correct?
No, I'm 9 o'clock.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm 9 o'clock as well.
Okay. All right, well, Rosemary gets the late award. In Mosiah chapter 10, it's one verse I'm going to pull out, a bit out of context, but I want to share with you that I think is appropriate. And that goes like this, and it says, "And it came to pass," and you'll recognize some of this, "that we did go up to battle against the Lamanites. And I, even I in my old age, did go up to battle against the Lamanites. And it came to pass that we did go up in the strength of the Lord to battle." And the reason I bring that up, there's more verses about this. It's one of the war chapters. It talks about how the people went up in the strength of the Lord to battle. Now, if you look around us today, we are not fighting the Lamanites, but in our own lives, are there battles that we have? Financial, spiritual, emotional, you name it, and this is for everybody listening as well. Are there things that we literally feel like we're battling? Could be a health issue, it could be fatigue, it could be a neighbor that's giving us difficulty, it could be something in our community, it could be something at church or in your church calling. Am I warm on that sometimes that's how life feels nowadays? That word is not out of place?
Oh, for sure not. Yeah, we're totally battling.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I love that if you take that one verse, not out of context, but out of the rest, and it says, again, I'll get back there real quick. That's what you get when you have your scriptures on your phone, is it once it goes away, it takes a minute to get back. It says, "And it came to pass that we did go up in the strength of the Lord to battle." And what I want all of us, including myself, to remember is the Lord goes with us to battle. It's not just the Lamanites and the Nephites against the Lamanites and what was a literal battle for them, and that may be the case in some of our lives. We have family that are soldiers and other people that may be involved in that, but what I'm talking about for most of us is the battles of our lives. If we ask, and a lot of this was talked about in conference last time, if we ask, the Lord will go with us to battle. It's that simple. And one of the beauties of this, welcome everybody. One of the beauties of this is that is a very literal statement. If you took that verse and put that on your mirror in your bathroom and read that every day, that's a promise the Lord gave to those folks, and it's a promise that He gives to us today, just as much as He did in Book of Mormon times, that the Lord will go with us to battle. And again, it may be something physical, but more often not, it isn't. It's the things we have to battle with in our lives. And I want you to just take that simple context, and hopefully that helps you. It helped me. I think when we ask the Lord to go with us to battle, we can feel so much better and know that we won't be immune from troubles and trials, but He will be with us. And I say this tonight in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
And hopefully let's see, we've got, who else just joined us here? Lynn Ann and Nick, thank you both for being here. I hope you didn't get just the last part of that spiritual thought, and hopefully maybe if you did, you can go back and look at it again. Thank you for coming. We love everybody here, and are glad you guys are here. All right, we are going to talk tonight about a couple of things. We're going to talk about terminations, layoffs, because they're different. We asked who had again, short-term memory is always one of my specialties here. Who was the one, Jen, was that you that brought up the voluntary terminations?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to add that one to the list. And I would say we're going to talk about leaving, all right? Or separating, or whatever you want to call it. Now, let me ask you this. When relationships end in a personal sense, divorce, moving away, you have to move and your kids think you've just ruined their life because they're in high school and you've moved them to a new town. Am I getting warm for anybody?
Yeah.
Okay. And Lynn, is that your life right now, or has been recently?
It has been recently. We moved
Okay.
a lot when I was growing up. We moved lots of different places.
Okay. All right. Well, you look at that, and that separation is extremely difficult, is it not?
Yeah.
Whether you're young, old. I look at this now. My wife and I have been in our current home and our current ward for 19 years. We only live one other place. Well, we live two other places. Since I left BYU in 1985, I know this really sounds bad. I sound like I'm a sheltered person that never has done anything, and I've never moved anywhere. We moved from BYU to Mesa, Arizona in an apartment for 2 years. Bought our first house, lived there for 10 years, and we've lived in our current house now for 19. So we've lived within 10 miles of where I live now almost our entire married life. But we're looking at this from an empty nest perspective and saying we don't want a two-story house because neither of us want to climb the stairs when we're 80. So we're looking at moving, but even us in our decrepit old age say, you know what, those relationships are there. They're hurtful if they change. Nothing's ever the same when you leave, and I want to bring that full circle to a work environment. Forget the reason, but what happens when people leave at work? What does it feel like?
Like there's a hole.
Like there's a hole. Absolutely. Great. What else?
Sometimes it's a great relief.
And absolutely, you know what? It's life. Yes.
Right.
You want to tap dance as they're walking out the door.
Okay. Absolutely. What else does it feel like when somebody leaves at work?
Sometimes it can be a shock. Sometimes it can be
Yeah.
something that's unexpected.
Absolutely. What else? There's more. We haven't got them all yet.
I think depending on the circumstances, it can affect the morale of those left behind.
Absolutely.
It can make them feel vulnerable, or it can make them feel angry. It can make them feel like, am I next? You know, just depending on how they left and why they left. And
there's all kinds of emotions to go with that, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And some of that's called survivor's guilt. Depending on the circumstances, that's a key issue that's there. Well, yeah, I would also. How about the oh my gosh, who's going to do their work? Does that ever happen when somebody leaves an organization? Okay, and that's like, are you serious? Who's going to do all this? So we're going to talk about this tonight in 3 different ways. We're going to talk about terminations. We're going to talk about layoffs and why they're different. And then we're going to talk about voluntary terminations that Jen requested and go from there. So let's start with, we're going to start with a involuntary, if I can type. I'm getting that spelled right. Not, but I'll fix it. An involuntary termination. So you're terminating someone, or you're the human resources person, or you're a manager. What are the things that happen when somebody gets terminated? Again, this is something they did not plan on, and that's something they did wrong. So again, different than a layoff.
so in class, is this a dismissing or?
Yep, dismissing is another way to
Okay,
call it.
dismissing an
Absolutely.
employee. Okay.
Fired, dismissed, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
So what happens then? Let's start with the emotions. What happens when you have someone that you pull into your office, you're terminating their employment? They do not expect it, or maybe they do. What are their typical reactions to that?
I think they're more shocked and surprised.
Hey, Lynn, do you have headphones by chance?
Yeah, let me go.
Yeah, because we're getting a big echo. I think it's you. Okay. All right. So there's shock. What else?
Anger.
Okay. Absolutely.
I think there's probably some blame.
Blame. Oh yeah. Okay. Others? Nope, we scared her away.
Embarrassment.
Oh, absolutely. What my coworkers at a previous company used to call the perp walk. You know, with the HR guy's got the box following behind you, and it's probably stolen as a line from a TV show. So I don't mean it to be horribly cold, but you know, it's okay. Everybody knows what's going on. Okay. All right. What else happens when somebody's terminated?
It's usually sudden or immediate.
Okay. Can be. Very much so. How about anger? Does that happen on the part of the person that's being terminated?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. One of the jokes that I don't take my job too seriously, and we have a little bit of fun with this now and then. One of my former bosses walked into my office one day. He was laughing hysterically, and he gave me this article about an HR guy, I think it was in India, fired someone, and the guy came in with a gun and just blew his head off. And he thought it was, I mean, this guy had a really sick sense of humor, so it wasn't out of character for him, and it wasn't offensive. And he laughed and said, you know, do you ever worry about stuff like this? I said, no. But, you know, people do get violent, they do get angry, and things like that happen, so it can be difficult and can be a problem, especially in today's world. Okay, so all those things happen. We're not going to talk about layoffs now. We're going to still talk about terminations for a while. So when I have a termination, I've got one motto for you, and I'll type this one in. A termination for someone should not be a surprise. Agree? Disagree? What do you guys think?
I agree. I was reminded when you were talking about when I interviewed my HR person, and we talked about, you know, firing people, and she said, if somebody has to if I have to dismiss someone and they're surprised, then I have not done my job.
Okay.
It should never come as a surprise to them, because if I've done my job, then they've had multiple chances to correct things that they've messed up on, and so it should never come out of the blue.
Very good,
If
Jenna.
she, as an HR professional, has done her duty.
Correct. Correct. Absolutely agree with that 100%. Now, there are times that does not happen, and what I would say that doesn't happen, well, and again, it still shouldn't be a surprise. If you have something like a gross safety violation or theft
Right.
or workplace violence, that still shouldn't be a surprise if somebody's terminated for that.
Yeah.
Okay. But if it's just plain old performance and it's the first time they've heard about it, that's not good. And so, Jen, you described it very well. And I really think that's one of the mottos that I have is we really don't want people to be surprised if I have to terminate their employment. Okay, well, again, we'll talk about layoffs. Sometimes it's a little bit different. So one of the mottos I have is should not be surprised. Now, Jen, you gave a perfect example of that. Anybody else have a comment on that? Agree, disagree? What do you think?
I agree that you shouldn't be surprised.
Okay.
They might be surprised they got caught.
Okay.
True.
There you go.
That'd be about it.
They thought they were getting away with something.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's one part. And Nick, I'm not sure. I keep hearing like a static or interference. Is that a background noise? I think it's coming from you.
It is. That's why I keep muting my mic.
Okay.
My group was complaining about it last week as well, so I just.
Okay. No, just do what you're doing. It's fine. It's not a big deal. We'll live with it.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I can't quite isolate what's causing the interference, but.
It's
me.
gremlins in the line.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's one thing. When it comes to terminations, the other part is everybody is afraid to fire people nowadays. And from my perspective as an HR person, I look at that a little bit different. And I'm adding the word documented here. Again, in cases of a gross negligence or something that's horrible right off the bat, you don't document that. Somebody comes in and there's violence, or they steal, or there's a safety accident issue, you can terminate right away because it's bad enough that, or drug use, or whatever a big deal would be for your company policy. Then those kind of things are understandable. But again, the other part I would add is that when you document, let's say, for example, and we talked about this, I think, with our progressive discipline discussion. You have a verbal warning. You have a written warning, or some version of this. You have another written warning. You've got 3 or 4 pieces of paper, and somewhere along the line you say, if you don't correct this, the next discussion we have is going to be termination. And you can say those things, put them on paper, etc. But just having those conversations is not good enough. You need to have the paper with, and I'm just showing this as an example, with an employee's signature on it. It should not be something that we just talk about. And again, as much as I preach that, every time I turn around, I've got one yesterday. They said they wanted to terminate a person with 0. Nothing on paper, no discussions, no anything. And again, we can do that, but what I tell people all the time, and this is one of those things you guys can give me some thought on, we can do this, but I try to give them the level of risk. I said this person, and I'm just making this part up, is a minority. This person is over 40. This person may be female. If 0 is no risk, 100% is we're in big trouble. We're at 70% there, or 80% that there's a chance they're going to come back and have an issue with us. What do you guys think about that? Agree, disagree from what you read or your experience?
Well, I just wonder how that applies. Is Arizona an at-will? How does that play into the at-will employment?
It does. At-will is fine, but it's also you can sue me if you want to. So yes, it's an employment at-will state, and as many are, but they still can turn around and say, yes, you can terminate me, but I have the right to sue you, or go to the government or whatever the case might be, and have some action against you as an employer. So a good comment, Jen. It's not that simple. I wish it was.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. Other thoughts on that? If I've got my ducks in a row, what does that do versus not having them in a row? What do you guys think?
If you have them in a row and you've given them full warning, you've talked to them, you've done several written reviews, I think that they're not going to be surprised that you're going to terminate them. But then also, if you're an at-will state, you have reasons and documentation to back up your reasons, so they can't come back to the company and sue the company because you have definite reasons to show the court he was talked to verbally, he had written warnings, he knew that if it happened again, he or she knew that if it happened again, then they would be terminated and they'd be let go.
Okay, very good. Very good, Lynn. And again, what that does, it makes it so you're not afraid.
Right.
All right? There are people that shake in their boots about terminations. And because, again, it's not a layoff. It's saying, hey, your performance is bad. I've talked to you about it. You're good to go. Here's what I'm going to give you. But if you're not prepared and you don't have those things, then the company should be afraid. Now, let me ask you guys a question. Have you ever had a termination that you know of in your company where the company was not prepared and that came back to haunt the company? Any takers on that one? And then you have one to share?
Yeah.
Go ahead, then Rosemary.
The company that I worked for is actually a Utah company. They had an office up here in Vancouver, and we had to actually let go the vice president of the company, and he was fully aware of what was going to happen. However, he retaliated. He broke into the company, damaged all sorts of stuff, and he thought he was a little bit more clever in trying to get into the system, and he got into the system. However, he forgot to log out of the system. And so we were able to go in and find out where he went and all of that stuff and documented and did screenshots, and then, it all went to court. And so, yes, we did have to terminate him. And he was surprised because he had this big ego that he was the vice president of the company, and you can't, terminate me. So, yeah.
It sounds like they should have arrested him.
Yeah, they actually did. And so the judge had basically said, you can't be involved in this company anymore.
Okay, good example. All right, let's see. Rose, I can't talk. Rosemary, yes. The words are trying to come out. Go ahead, Rosemary. You had an example.
Yeah, we've had several over the years. I was really surprised when I think about it because working for the government, you think they would know how to terminate employees, but
Oh no.
there
No.
have been several over the years that they did not have proper documentation on. And so what it came down to is that they sued. They were out of work for a long, long time, but during that period of time, they had to restore all the money that they would have paid them during that time, all the legal fees. They had to pay for any leave that they would have occurred, sick or vacation time. So, you know, it's quite an expense. One of the people that was terminated and sued and won, later on, you know, eventually got terminated again, you know, with actual real documentation. So if they'd done it right the first time, they might have saved themselves a lot of money.
And the
Well, you know,
taxpayers.
yeah, us a lot of money.
Uh-huh.
You look at this. This concept is so simple, and yet it is so underutilized. Now, I've got one trick that I can use that will help you guys from an HR perspective. But I want to leave it at this: is that if you're terminating someone, you use that process, you do it fairly, you give it some time so people can fix their behavior. You can't do all verbal warning, written warning, final written warning, termination in like a week. It doesn't work that way. Okay. The other thing you can be pretty safe on with some kind of a short notice is attendance, like no call, no shows, those type of things. You can get away with some of those without a lot of documentation, but the regular terminations need to have that. And when you're talking about that, that's if you can do that and have managers understand that and use that tool, you can protect yourself. You can still terminate people. They may take you to court. They may file suit with the government. But when you've got your ducks in a row, you can go home and sleep at night. It's not that hard. But it is hard to get people to say, well, I don't want to offend them. Maybe they'll turn it around. Maybe, again, some of these may sound familiar to you. They'll get better. They're getting better. And they wait, and they wait, and they wait, and they wait, and then now it's a year, and they say, I got to have them gone today. Does that sound familiar at all to anybody?
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, let me give you the one tool that you can use that almost always works. If you have to terminate somebody, and I bring this up to my company here, and I brought it up to all my other companies, and my own company when I had that, is that you can do something that can help you. If you, let's say it happens like I just described it. Nothing, 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 nothing. I've got to have them gone today. The first thing you do is have that discussion with the management leaders that says, hey, here's the risk level. This person's like an 80% chance they're going to go sue us, take it to the EEOC. Something bad's going to happen. Okay, so first of all, am I being clear? And if they believe you, and if you've got a track record that works, that's pretty much what happens. Second thing is that you have a tool you can use. It's not free, but it is one you can use, which is called a severance agreement. And if you put enough money on the table that that person really can't turn it down, then you can have that agreement already ready to go, and you're wise as a company. You say, you know what, this person could cost us a lot of money. We're going to give them 6 weeks of salary continuation and benefits continuation, or 8 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever the number is. It has to be enough for them to take it. And basically you say, if you go away today, I've got this money for you. You'll continue to get paid. They'll give you time to go look for a job. I think I've had never one person in all the years I've done this that said no. Now they may have come back and said, I'm not rich enough. If I'm going to do this, then you've got to make it richer, and then we've negotiated that. But this agreement basically is a legal agreement that says you're not going to sue the company, you're not going to do these things, and in turn, we're going to give you this money. Now, that almost never works for unemployment. You cannot negotiate that out, so they can go still file unemployment. You're not going to oppose that, and you're going to have them sign this severance agreement. It is worth every dime. I've never had one that blew up in my face, ever, and I'm not saying that just to be proud or egotistical. They work. And if you have a company that has not prepared and you're a good HR person, that's a great tool that can work for you. Thoughts, ideas? Agree, disagree?
It's a great doohickey solution. Thank you.
There you go.
I was just thinking that.
Ooh, I wish that was my topic this week.
Well, there you go. You know what? Whoever, it's a freebie for somebody.
Yeah.
Do you ever use retirement? I know that they use that on us where I work, that if they're at, where they could retire, they offer them the option of, okay, we can work on the process of terminating you, or we can allow you to go ahead and get, if we terminate you, you're not going to get your retirement, but if we allow you to retire, then you can go and leave with that.
Yeah, and if there's an organization like the government that has a pension or something else like that, that's great. That's a good opportunity to make that work. A lot of people nowadays, unless they're in your shoes, Rosemary, don't have that option, and that's why the company has to put those dollars on the table.
Okay.
It's a great option if it's there. Other thoughts or reactions to that separation agreement?
I was just wondering, what is the difference between offering an agreement like that and a layoff?
I could have paid you for that transition. We're going to talk about that. Okay. A layoff, I'm going to answer that directly. First of all, we're talking about termination for cause. All right. Layoffs, which we're going to get to in just a minute, I may or may not have an agreement like that, Nicole, but a layoff is generally safer than a termination for cause. And I'll get to the reasons for that in a minute. So typically, again, this is a company that has not been prepared, or they feel there's a certain risk to the company if they terminate this person without the proper documentation process. So hold that thought. We're going to come back to that. So you have to have a question, and Jen's got a question both, so we'll make sure we get those. Okay, so I'm going to leave this part. All I would say is with termination for cause, don't be afraid of it. Prepare in advance as much as you can. And by the way, that means you people as managers, that as you manage people, may have this issue, or you may even suggest those kind of things. So, I'm sorry. You have the issue of documentation. You need to be doing that to help your HR people out. Second thing is, if you don't have that luxury, or you inherited a problem or something else like that, you can propose a separation agreement. Those can tend to be, they're not horribly expensive. You just think of what it would cost to pay somebody their salary for X amount of time. It's typically, compared to what the government might be, would be cheaper, and it just makes that problem go away. So that can be another tool that you can work with. All right, let's change to layoffs. Now, what is a layoff, and why is it different from a termination for cause?
It doesn't have to be a result of some action you took that was negative, I would say.
The employees may not have done anything wrong.
Right.
Okay, very good. What else?
It's usually sweeping. It's not an individual. You're not taking out one individual. You're taking out a division. You're taking out 10, 20, 200 employees at a time.
Yeah, and it can be small, as Nick said. It can be 5 people. It doesn't have to be 2. It can be 200, but it can be 5 also. Actually, it can even be 2. The trick is you don't single out a person. Okay, and Nick, is that where you were headed with that? Okay, good thought.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, what else? What else is the difference between a layoff and a termination?
I think a layoff too is like more of a restructuring. Could be, say, for example, a company is in acquisition to purchase another company, and so they're restructuring departments. They're restructuring their entire company.
Yeah,
and so
go ahead. Sorry.
Just like you had said before, it's not like that any employee did anything wrong. It's just they might not have a fit for an individual that they had before.
I have 2 accounting departments. I have 2 shipping departments. I have, you name it, those kind of things. Or business is just bad. We all saw that in the 2007, 2008, 2009, and way too many years beyond that. We shrink, we shrink, we shrink. We do more with less. We survive, and then we grow back when things get better. Okay, very good. All right. Anything else different between those 2? I would add one more thing. I would add pain. It can be less painful, or it can be more painful. Less painful meaning, hey, Fred, Joe, Sue, and Larry are gone. Yeah, it wasn't me. It was all of us, or it was the business, or it was those kind of things. Easier for people to swallow. Is that a yes or a no? What do you guys think?
No. I say no.
Okay.
I would agree. Look, 'cause, yeah, you're not signaling out an individual for failure. It's just, I'm sorry, you've been a great employee. See you later. And
Okay.
That's almost
kind of-
worse.
It's a slap
Yeah.
in the face.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. And again, so if I was failing, I deserved it, then, well, I got another job somewhere else. But I've been doing all the good stuff, and this is what I get. Okay, very good. And again, I don't have an answer to this. This is basically, it can go either way. Okay? All right, well, let's talk about layoffs for a little bit. First of all, there is something that I would encourage you, if you ever get to a point where you have something called the WARN, W-A-R-N, like Warning Act. It doesn't happen very often, but there are some companies that are affected by that, where you need to give advance warning to companies and people if they are losing their position. We'll leave that for today. I'm not going to get into that. That's something that does come up occasionally. Most companies don't have to deal with that, or at least most of the layoffs I have not had to deal with that. But when you look at this, when you're talking about laying off people, you have a whole different set of issues. And I'm going to start with a couple of these. First of all, you really got to prepare in advance. It takes forever to get one of these things good to go, even if it's a small one. And again, I'm going to go through a couple things here. I want you guys to jump in if you've got a comment. So you have to prepare and prepare and prepare. Here's the other one that is absolutely essential, is you've got to keep this quiet. And that means, and I'll give you an example, your spouse works for the company, and you know your spouse is going to get laid off, and you can't tell them.
Yeah.
You talk about a tough situation, or a friend, or those kind of things. You absolutely can't let that out, because as you did we not read something about that recently? Did you guys have anything in your reading that was related to that? Okay, that must be up in another week ahead of us. So you have to be quiet. You have to do that. You have to be concerned about safety, because this is where sometimes people go nuts, especially if you have them congregate. And this is one that I think you really have to be careful of with as an HR person. You have to do the timing on this, which is basically, it's not a good idea to have 20 people you're going to lay off show up at the same time. And can you see why that would be an issue?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anybody ever seen a mob get angry? It happens. The
word
VP
mutiny comes to mind.
The word what?
Comes to mind.
Yeah, it does. You have to be careful of all of that, and that means, you know what? Sometimes it's really simple. You have to, if it's a work schedule or other things, you tell people, I need you here at 7. I need you here at 7:30. I need you here at 8. I need you here at 8:30. It may be pretty obvious on why you're doing that, but you have to be careful not to get a big crowd there at one time. So that's another issue that goes along with that. Another one is, again, some of this is applicable to the termination, but not all of it. In matter of fact, a lot of it isn't. The other one is details. You've got to have every piece of everything done in advance. What about their insurance? Am I eligible for unemployment? Those things all have to be ironed out in advance, so people walk out with those things. And then it's not, if it's not detail oriented, it is absolutely chaos. Yeah. And that's not a good thing. That's bad. All right. Any reaction to any of these so far? I'm going to be quiet and let you guys talk for a minute. Which ones catch your eye and why?
Well, the one thing I was wondering is, with the reading that we had, they're talking about layoffs can be good if employees are involved. They understand it. So how is that possible if we're supposed to keep quiet?
How do you guys think? What do you guys think? And I agree. I don't disagree with the reading, except that's really tough to do. Your thoughts? What do you guys think?
I think that if some of the employees are involved, they might react differently. They may have anger problems. They might have retaliation. It just depends, I guess, on how it's presented. If they know that there's going to be layoffs coming, I would say, like, for example, if they had a company that bought off another company, then they know that there's going to be some positions, obviously, that are going to be, laid off because you have, like you said, two shipping departments. But I think if they were involved ahead of time, with acquisition happening, they know that they're going to be laid off. Some may be angry and some may not.
Okay, good. That's a good example, and I think that's a good example of when that might work. All right. Is there a time when that would be difficult to do? Where, again, to Nicole's question, yeah, they recommend it, but it could be tough. Any takers on that one?
What about that study we were doing with the Hormel company, and let's say they had to announce, okay, we're going to move the plant completely out of your town. They wouldn't want to announce that to everybody, and the layoffs will be coming.
Okay. Yeah, that could be a big problem. I don't know. There's no great answer to that. I think Lynn Ann gave an example of when that could work. It's pretty when it's obvious and we all have a brain, and you know what? Hey guys, we're going to get together because I don't know what this means yet. We're going to put a committee together. Now the problem is, hey, you're my buddy, and I think we're going to recommend that Fred never get laid off. Well, Fred's the worst guy in the batch. Fred ought to go first, not last. So it could be. It's a progressive concept. Let's put it that way. Most companies do not do it that way.
And also, I've also realized is that if you're like the last one hired, and then 3 months later you are acquired by a different company, most generally you're going to be the first one to go.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of fact, when I worked for the silicon industry, that's pretty much what happened. I was there for a year, and then the company was purchased, and a lot of people knew that they didn't want to work for the newer company that was being, bought out. And so they knew that positions were going to be dissolved.
Mm-hmm.
So they looked at other places. But they also knew that the company that was going to buy them, they did not want to work for them. Okay. So they knew in advance they had that option to stay, but they also had managers that would come to the site to actually look over it as thinking if they were going to keep the office there, which in reality they were not.
Yeah, no, I get you. And sometimes you have to do those things. That's a difficult thing.
Can you offer a severance? Do you ever do a severance agreement here for this too, to kind of appease people?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lots of companies do that, and that can be a way to make that easier. It's very expensive. Larger companies tend to do this. Again, same thing with a severance or a separation agreement. You have the signature that says, I'm not going to sue you. So somebody may say, you know what, I'm not signing that. Okay, that's all right. You don't have to. A layoff is generally safer than a termination for cause. Mm-hmm. So, but again, the separation agreement can always help if you can afford it. So, and it also comes back to one other thing I'm going to is you're talking about the survivors. Sometimes you offer those separation agreements and generous packages because who are you trying to really take care of?
The people left behind.
Okay, the people left behind. All right, you've got a company to run, and there's that shock and awe and disbelief, and there's, oh my gosh, this is awful. And if they see you just go, do it to the employees that are leaving, it's like, I'm not staying here. This place is awful. But if they see that you've done all you can, you've given them dollars or benefits, again, as much as you can afford, that says, we took care of them as best we could. We'd like you guys to stay. Do you think that's a better reaction that you're going to get out of that than not? And if so, why?
I would think it would be a better reaction because then you know that almost that they didn't have any other choice. Type situation.
Yeah, there might be some, I guess, anxiety or questioning of like, why are you getting rid of her? How come you're getting rid of him? And he's been really good in this group, and I see promise in him, and I see promise in her, but why are you getting rid of me? You know, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always there. The other part, in addition to survivors, is the second guessing. Either the people that are leaving or the people that are staying is, why did that happen? Why did they keep her? Or why did they keep him? Or like, are you serious? You know, it's Nick's comment earlier. Instead of the cheer, it's like you hear a thud, and it's like, oh my gosh. You mean you let Sue go, and Sue's the best person we have? You kept Fred? Are you people psychotic or what? You know, what in the heck are you thinking about? And so it really is. It's a tough thing, because that second guessing can go along with the fact that you're survivors, and there's this whole concept called survivor's guilt. That's not a unique thing to being laid off, but it's anyone that survives a disaster. If you look at the World Trade Center and people that survived and some didn't, there's trauma that goes with that. A lot of you may know more about that than I do, but there's all kinds of stuff that goes into this concept of layoffs. And I want to do a couple of other things here. A layoff can allow you to rehire someone or not rehire someone. A layoff can give you help in eliminating problem employees. Now, this one is a little tougher to do. This is where it's like, okay, we aren't going to take you by seniority. I'm sorry, Fred, Susie, Larry, and Sam. We're letting you four go, and you may have had 5 or 10 years with us, but we're keeping Fred, Sue, Mary, and Jane because they started in the last 2 years, but they're better than you are. Now, we'd never say that as an HR person, but sometimes companies will do that in a mass group to try to make sure that they keep the right people. That can be a problem, but lots of companies do that. Your reaction to that?
We will agree with it.
I was just thinking, in the reading that we did for this week, that was one of the things they said that layoffs didn't totally accomplish was eliminating a lot of the people that you thought should have been eliminated.
Nick, was that another comment I missed from you?
No, I hadn't.
Okay, I
added
thought
anything.
I heard your voice. My apologies. Okay.
It was a phantom. It was another phantom man. I heard it too. I don't know who it was.
Okay. Either that or somebody's voice is changing. So, all right. Jennifer, any thoughts? I haven't heard any comments from you on this one. Anything about this layoff piece that you would add?
No.
Okay. All right. Good enough. I want to close tonight with one other thing, whether it's layoffs or terminations. And if I've said this already, please stop me so I don't sit here and babble on like some old guy that doesn't know what he's talking about. And that is when somebody is terminated, whether it's a layoff or a for cause. I think we've already covered this, and I apologize because my memory's coming back. And I think that one of the things that we have a responsibility to do as managers and HR people is how we treat these individuals. And I think did we talk about this in a week or two ago, or am I just doing this remembering from another class here? Okay, from your
I
lack
think
of.
we did talk about this.
All right. Well, then I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up again.
But that's okay.
I'll bring it up again. When you look at this, especially as members of the church, we know who people are. We know they're children of God. We know that they have souls. We know that they have needs and feelings, etc. And I think we have a responsibility on how we treat people. I think every time, and my mantra that I try to do and try to live by is that I try to have terminations happen where someone will walk out of there, if not with a smile, but then feeling like they've been treated fairly equally and with dignity and respect. HR people are not known for this. Sometimes it's like those blankety blank HR people. They're awful. They're cold. They don't, they don't have any feelings. I think it's okay to be horribly sad for somebody that's laid off. I think it's okay, to feel bad and to let emotions, come into this equation a little. You have to watch that. You can't go cry with a person, but you can feel bad and have empathy and try to give them time to compose themselves. I think we have a responsibility for that as managers and HR people to make all of that happen as much as we can. And I'll leave it at that because I know we talked about it a little bit. What are any thoughts, reactions when it comes to either layoffs or terminations, our discussion tonight, and that concept?
I guess my question would be, how does that conversation go, especially in a termination where it's for cause, where they have really just messed up routinely, and honestly, you're thankful to see them go.
Okay.
How do you have that conversation?
Okay. Whoever had that second question, hold that for just a second. In my mind, I think, Nick, this is how I look at it. I think you're honest with them, and you don't go too far down this road because it can get you in trouble. But I think you say, you know what, you're losing your job. We'd really like you to take this feedback and try to make a change in something we think you need to do better. And before you go on to that next employer, really do an evaluation and think that, you need to do something different. And a perfect example would be terminating somebody for attendance. You know what, you missed these days. You can't do that to an employer. Think about it. Think about what you need to do different and try something, So you give them some feedback and some coaching that says, yeah, I know you're not happy about where we are, but try to turn this into something good. And that's one answer I would give. And again, we'll get to that other question. So any other thoughts on that answer that I gave?
I like that answer because you're trying to be positive with them. You're trying to be honest with them. Let them know that, look, yeah, these things you can't do at this company. However, if you do it at another company, there's a good chance possibly that you'll probably be let go as well.
Yeah. Or the positive of that says, you know what, if you change this, life will be good. You don't need to change everything. You just need to change these things. Okay, Lynn Ann, thank you for that. Okay, Nick, does that help answer that a little bit?
Yes, very much. Thank you.
Okay. Now we could spend a half an hour on ways to do that, but I don't want to, you guys will be snoring by then, so we don't want to go that route. And who did I cut off that had the other comment or question?
Oh, I was just going to say that I think as an employee, because, we're not all going to be HR people, but as an employee, it's never a good thing to burn a bridge because you never know if you're going to have to cross back over it. And so in my husband's professional life, we worked for a company, and I was ready to just, light that bridge on fire and and walk away.
Okay.
And he had a level head about it, and he handled it, he handled it very professionally. And unbeknownst to us, we're back with the same company 6 years later, and it's a huge blessing. It's just a huge blessing. So, and it's all because he didn't burn bridges, even though I thought, there was just cause for him to burn those bridges. But I think you can take that from an employee and an employer standpoint, that you never need to handle the situation where it becomes so negative that you burn bridges you may need to cross again.
That is awesome. That's a perfect example. Thank you so much for that, Jen. That is excellent, because you know what? We don't know those things.
Yeah.
Times change, circumstances change. If you're in a small town and you've only got X amount of people to work, and where you're working, you may have to bring people back. You may get more business. There's 100 reasons why that could happen, including if
people can change.
They can, including if somebody's terminated for cause. It doesn't mean that they will never come back and work for you again. Okay, perfect. Well, I want to wrap us up here. I've just got just a minute or two. I keep glancing at my box down here in the corner where I type things or look at the clock. It's a little tough to see without it. I want you to think about this. And I think, Jane, you said this at the beginning, or just with your beginning of your last comment. Whether you're an HR person, a manager, employee, whatever the case might be, I mean, this class isn't to train you guys to be HR people, but these concepts are well. If you supervise someone, don't take notes and put them in a squirrel and away at a desk somewhere. Use the forms and the processes your company has to document, to get in an employee file, concerns and issues. Don't wait. If you've got a problem person, address it. If you've got someone that violates policy or process in a big way, then you can terminate most of the time right away. Follow what your company says, work with the HR people, don't do those things yourself. And even to what Jennifer said at the end is that, you know, if it is you that gets asked to go, then what I would say is it's the type of thing where never burn that bridge, because guess what? It could be something that could be beneficial for you in the long run. Final thoughts for tonight from anybody?
Well, I'm not sure you addressed the question that I had at first about.
Okay, bring that back. That's why I asked you to do that for us.
Oh, okay. So just wondering if someone voluntarily leaves with the termination, and you are then asked to give a reference letter, can you state anything about, like, how do you handle that? Are you legally bound to keep your mouth shut of why they left your company, or?
I'm going to let you guys tackle that one first, then I'm going to come back at the end with that one, Jennifer. Thanks. What do you guys think? They leave, they have a reference letter, they had some issues while they're here. I'm assuming, Jennifer, that's part of it?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so what do you do?
I guess I don't understand the question. What's the question?
Well, if someone leaves the company voluntarily, they know if they don't leave, they're going to get fired because either their poor performance or whatever else. But they leave voluntarily. In a reference letter, can you, if a future prospective employer calls you and asks you about it or asks for a letter, can you state to that next person why they left? Or because they left voluntarily, are your lips sealed?
Yeah. I guess I'm going to jump in here and try to answer that. I would say my take on this is I don't give references, period. Certainly not in writing. Basically, I pull the HR, hey, I'm in the Human Resources Department. Our company doesn't give references. We wish you the best. I'll tell you when they worked for me, and if you have a signed document from them, I'll tell you how much they made. That's it. The name, rank, and serial number thing. Now, if you have somebody you really want to help out, you might do something like talk to that person's manager and say, hey, call this person and tell them a couple of things. That, they were okay here and okay here. But I think you really, in my official and unofficial answer is you really open yourself up to problems and issues and concerns when you give reference, because they go to that employer, they have the same problem, and you've got this employer that said, hey, you told me they were good, and what can that employer do to you?
Right. Gotcha. Okay.
The best thing I would do is just say, no, we don't give references. Thanks a lot. Good luck to you. I'll tell you when they worked here, and I'll tell you what they made if you show me something signed. And I think that is cold, but that's probably the best way to do that.
Okay.
So did we get everybody's questions now? And if not, I think we're good. We've hit our magic 9, 10, or 11 o'clock, whatever time it is you're at your house. I appreciate all you guys being here. Thank you so much. A great discussion tonight. We have one more of these next week, whether you're watching on recording or not. We do not have one of these in week 13, so we're almost at the end. You guys are doing great work. Keep it up, and we'll have details about the final and everything else next week.
Okay, all right.
All right. Everybody have a great night. Thank you for the great participation. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care.
Everybody have a great night.
Have a good week.
Yes.
All right.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.